Hi, I'm Kevin,
And I'm Amanda.
and we are serving up
All that jam.
All That Jam, Quick Hit. Joe Marcinek on Dead Funk Summit.
Let's chat about Dead Funk Summit.
This is kind of, I don't know, it's called the Dead Funk Summit. It feels like the summit of my career in some kind of weird ways, or at least everything I've been doing up to this point. So I got to work with George Porter and Melvin Seals, and it's still feels weird hearing those words come out of my mouth. Because I'm just a little nobody from Crown Point, Indiana. Nowhere near on the level of these like legends of music, and still just like I said, crazy saying the words. So the idea originally came. Maybe we should go back just a little bit. So typically under the Joe Marcinek band, every weekend I do a different lineup. And this has kind of been my thing for the past at least 10 years now of doing these kind of like crazy super jams all over the country. Originally based in Chicago, and then we started spreading out all over the country. So as the project kind of started to grow, I started to work with some, bigger national acts. And Tony Hall introduced me to George Porter. Well, actually, George came and sat in on a gig first, but then Tony was booked on a run. He couldn't make it, so he called in George as a last-minute replacement. So I worked with George. Then I had met Melvin through Terrapin Flyer. So the next step was, all right, how do we get these guys together? So the idea really just started as a concert. And then when I knew it was going to be George and Melvin, it was like, well, this is something bigger than just my name. I was like, how can we brand this and make it something, a little bigger than just a normal show? So I thought of the idea of the Dead Funk Summit, bring in Melvin from the world of the Grateful Dead, George clearly from the funk world and the New Orleans scene, so it's bringing them together. So that kind of like not climbing Mount Everest summit, just like the meeting summit. So it starts as, just a concert, and then we got to play together a couple of times. And then during the pandemic, everyone's sitting around, there's nothing going on. I was like, well, this could be a great opportunity to record with these guys. No one's really having any work. And so I just kind of sat down and I started writing songs, all original music, but in that kind of world of funky, Grateful Dead-y vibe, still my own voice. And so it was, I think, February of 2022, I went down to New Orleans and worked with George and his trio, which is Terrence Houston on drums and Mike Lemler on keys. And then we sent the tracks to Melvin in San Francisco to record his part. So that's kind of how the original album came together.
Wow. I love that. And you kind of talking about kind of mixing up dead funk. I just kept thinking in my mind like Jerry Garcia band, and we've talked about this before on the show a number of times, dead, JGB, like does it make a difference which one? Like for you, are you channeling like any particular era or more of like that side project feel, or is it just kind of whatever comes of it?
I would say it leans more towards JGB, definitely sonically, but it wasn't a conscious choice. It was kind of just the way the songs came together. The first song on the album called Fever Dream, I was kind of just listening to JGB's version of Mystery Train. And so that was probably swimming around there, but it wasn't something I set out to like, let's make it sound like JGB. I think it just lend itself just because that music's a little bit funkier and a little bit looser. So I think it just lends itself to fit more in that world. But then there's this track called Ethereal, and that was, I knew I wanted some kind of, not ballad, but some kind of like slower, more emotional song that had this like, this evokes an essence of something. So, there's this Mingus tune called Goodbye Pork Pie Hat. And it's, just tribute to Coleman Hawkins and these older jazz greats. So I was trying to do my version of that, in my weird twisted head for Jerry Garcia. And I was going to call it, Jam for Jerry or something. I can't remember the original idea. But then listening back, it was like, this is kind of floaty in the space of, little Stella Blue or something. So it was like ethereal. Okay. So that song, I would say, sounds more like the Grateful Dead. So there is a little bit of both in there.
Nice. And then you end that with the self-titled Melvin and George, which I love. So like, where kind of like did that come from? Because I thought that was a really unique, like, fun thing to do.
Couple of parts to this story. So on my Slink record we released back in 2016, I had the crazy honor of working with Bernie Worrell from Parliament Funkadelic before he passed away. And we recorded that in the beginning of 2016, and then he passed away really shortly after. So at that time, we didn't even have a name for that song. But soon as he passed, we knew immediately this has to be a tribute to him. So I just called that song Bernie, as it's just a tribute to him. So then flash forward. Oh, and that also, from what I was told, became the last song Bernie ever recorded, which was just wild when I heard that. Just the way the universe lines up, you don't really get a choice. You just a participant. But so then when this next record that became the Dead Funk Summit before the pandemic, sorry, there's a lot of stories going in here. My idea was to do a different lineup on every song. So I wanted to do a full album where every song had a different lineup. And that was kind of more the nature of my band. Since it changes all the time, we'd have an album like that. So the first thing I recorded for that project was the song George. And it was George, Mike, and Terrence. So Melvin didn't play on that track. So then the second song I recorded for that project was called Melvin. And that was Melvin and then Ashley and Taylor Galbraith, a great drummer and bass player from Florida. So those are the only two songs on this current record that don't feature the full lineup, but they were kind of recorded back before the pandemic in 2020. So obviously the world shuts down. I have to scrap that project. And then I was just kind of sitting on those two songs for a while. So once this full project came together for the Dead Funk Summit, I know this is confusing. I'm sorry. Hopefully you're following along.
You're good.
But I knew I wanted to include those two songs in this new project. So they were kind of from this old project, but also like a tribute to each of those guys that I recorded with. And in a weird way, it keeps the theme going of working with these legends that I started with Bernie. So sorry, this is like the one meme where the guy's like putting all the different things together. That was that story. Hopefully you followed along.
If you are enjoying All That Jam, please like and subscribe to our social media channels at All That Jam Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, or visit our website, allthatjampod.com. Make sure to sign up for our email list and tune in every week for new episodes.
Also, look for full interviews on our YouTube channel. And remember, stay beautiful, but don't stay underground too long.